authors, it's Melody Ann, host of Author Nation, here to talk to you about using your personal stories to create a connection in your nonfiction writing. So stories are a powerful tool, or anecdotes are a powerful tool in your nonfiction writing. They help humanize you. They help make complex topics more accessible and relatable. They sharing your experiences builds trust, gets a deeper connection or emotional connection with your readers, and it'll really helps what you're writing resonate with people. So we're going to explore how to use personal stories effectively to support your content, to engage your audience, and enhance your authority. So the first thing I want to talk about is choosing the right stories to share. You want your stories to be authentic. You also want them to be relevant. And so not every personal story that you have is going to be a good fit for your nonfiction book. So you need to find stories that are authentic, honest, genuine, but also relevant. It in some way ties into the central theme of your book, the topic of that particular chapter. So ask yourself, does this story serve to clarify, to illustrate, to support the point I am making right now? A good personal anecdote reflects you, yes, but it also has to enhance the overall message of your book. So when you are choosing stories, think about your audience needs, their concerns, their dreams, their fears, their interests, and make sure you pick stories that are authentic to you, but also resonate with their experiences and their struggles. So the next thing I want to talk about is balancing vulnerability with professionalism. We went through a time, and it still happens, I still see it, not quite as much, but we went through a time where we were being told, through our stories, show vulnerability. And okay, I agree with that, but vulnerable and that they relate to what we're talking about, and professional. And so I remember once I was at an event, and the gentleman hosting the event stood up on stage, and he told us this whole story about this childhood abuse that he had been through. And yes, he was being vulnerable, and I can't say that the abuse doesn't matter, but I can say that it was completely irrelevant to what we were talking about. So if he had given us a story that was vulnerable and relevant, that would have been a better choice. So yes, be vulnerable. Don't be afraid to be vulnerable. But you also want to be relevant and professional. Really important. Vulnerability builds trust. And so it's really important, if you want people to trust you, that you don't armor up and, I'm perfect and everything's perfect and I've never made any mistakes, but I'm going to teach you how to deal with your stuff. You have struggled, you have failed, you've grown personally. This is the vulnerability you want to show that relates to the topic of your book, not vulnerability that has nothing to do with what you're talking about. So it's important not to overshare. It's important to be authentic and be personal, but not to give out private information that just doesn't relate and that your audience doesn't need to know. And of course, maintain professionalism. As a nonfiction author, you want to be personal, but you're also an authority on a subject. So when you share your personal experiences, frame them in a way that it adds to the value of your content, not detracts from that. So you want to balance your vulnerability with your professionalism. And part of that is just aligning your story with your expertise and letting that story demonstrate how your expertise contributes to the insights you'll be sharing in your nonfiction book. Very quickly, how are we going to structure this? You're going to start with something that's going to pull the reader in, right? Good stories sometimes they start in the middle. Sometimes they start at the end. Sometimes they start with a surprising question, but they start in a way that the reader's like, oh, what's going to happen next? What's this about? And then we always set the context a little bit. There's some background around this. You want to build empathy. There will be some conflict, whether it's internal or external, and there'll be a resolution. And often it's good to end with a reflection in this particular case, right? In a book, you can end with a reflection on what you learned, but not telling them what they should take away from the story. keeping it personal to what you learned about life or about yourself through this story. So what are you going to do? Find a moment in your life that could help your readers understand the challenges or the triumphs related to your topic, your triumphs. And then once you have this idea, how does this idea contribute to the overall message of the book or the message of that particular chapter? Think about the emotions you want to evoke in that this story can help you evoke. And then make sure it's concise, make sure it's relevant, and make sure it is impactful. All right, stories are so important. Use them. I have lots of videos on storytelling. There's a whole storytelling playlist. Go check it out. I also have something you can download to help you structure your story. I'm Melody Ann. This is Author Nation, and you keep writing. Keep sharing your unique stories with the world. We'll see you next time.